days ago, the Leicester Mercury had an article of the 40th anniversary of a march by the National Front through Leicester in 1979. And I was on the counter-protest on that occasion in opposition to the National Front. If you remember, the national headquarters was not far from here. Well, perhaps some of the audience don't remember, but some of us more senior ones might. They had a national headquarters in Leicester. They got significant numbers of votes in council elections. They were a threat nationally. But when people got together to oppose them, and particularly actually I would say the trade unions did that across the country, then they were driven back. And, you know, every time they raised their heads, I'm not saying all hate crime is down to the far-right organisations, because it's wider than that. So we have to stand with people and oppose those things. When the EDL came to Leicester a few years ago and they threatened the Central Mosque, I was stood with the local community then defending the Central Mosque when they tried to come up into Highfields to attack it. It's important that we stand together, all communities, opposition to the far right. I have supported the Leicester Civil Rights Movement in Leicester. In the past, we've highlighted a whole number of issues of race crimes, race hate crimes and so on. And I think we have to stand against that. And I agree in words, in deeds as well as in words. By the way, I agree with the point that Matt's made about the Prevent programme as well. Because let's be honest, it's not helped sometimes by newspapers and politicians sometimes who blame people, different groups, like migrants for example, for all the problems that exist within society, or blame groups in order to foster wars. You know, let's be honest, the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, which I opposed, behind that there was a sort of policy of blaming Muslims for terrorism that existed, blaming all Muslims for terrorism, and that was a very bad approach and a divisive approach to take. So I think it's important to oppose racism, but I also think, as I said earlier, that in order to cut across those groups and those individuals, we need to build a united movement around the issue of jobs, around the issue of homes and services against racism. On the question about care homes and care for the elderly, I think that all the care homes should be brought back into council control. The privatisation which Leicester City Council carried out of its care homes was wrong. It means companies that are trying to make a profit, if you want to put it that way, rather than just providing a service, that gets in the way, because it means often that staff are paid the minimum wage. It means that resources aren't going into those homes that need to go into them. And I think the issue of raising wages across the city is also an important point for us to raise. I'm personally in favour of £10 an hour minimum wage, and one that people can actually live on. So I think all those services must be brought back in-house and run as part of the private services. I know this time is pressing on the issue of climate and the climate emergency. I stand with those young people who've come out on strike, the strikes who you know, against politicians who are not dealing urgently with the climate emergency, and also those protesters that have been on the streets over the last few weeks making that point. And I think that one of the key parts of that, by the way, Friends of the Earth produced a manifesto with a whole number of points in it that could be taken up. Some of them would involve campaigning to get the government to do stuff rather than the council doing stuff, because with all of these issues, there's local aspects, but there's also national policy as well. But I think key to it is improving our bus service. Not every single one of those 16 points I agree with. I don't agree with the stick rather than the carrot. You know, I don't agree with penalising car drivers. If you charge workplaces for parking, that will probably be passed on to their workforce. It's equivalent to having a cut in your pay, if that's the case. Wouldn't it be better to have such a good public transport system, and yes, free for children, free for the elderly, and cheap for everyone else, so that people will want to go in public transport? It will be more convenient for them and easier. It's much easier if you can get a bus into town and you can afford it, and you know it's going to come back at the time you need, rather than driving around city centre looking for a parking space. So let's have the carrot, not the stick, and improve public transport in order to deal with the climate emergency.
Are you talking as a prospective mayor or as the councillor for Aylestone?
Can I answer the question? Because the point is, the reason
Job are you?
you sit down and I'll answer your question. The reason I'm standing is not because I want a job. It's not because I want to be the mayor or a councillor. It's because I think we need a different way of looking at things. We need people who will campaign for the people of Leicester. And I'm raising these points because I have a platform here to make these arguments. If I wasn't standing for those positions, I wouldn't have that platform. And that's why it's important to do it.